much away. Let's take a look at all of the headlines. Let's raise our cup to Indian filter coffee. We're going to take a deep dive into the story of it. Why, though, it's just been elected the world's second favorite brew. But also there's a bigger caffeine conundrum. How much caffeine is too much? We'll answer all of those questions in just a little while on the show. And we are bringing you a inspiring start. Dar ke aage jeet hai, and scaling new heights is GJ Sherpa, who has conquered Cho OU from the unforgiving, the difficult Nepal side. But he's also someone who went viral last year for saving someone's life on Mount Everest. We'll take a deeper dive with him on all of this and more. And of course, we'd love to get you an update from the vehicle sector. What we're going to be bringing you is the Maserati Gran Cabrio Folgo review. So it's a lightning bolt from Italy, but in terms of power, acceleration, ride quality, whether it's worth that huge price tag, it's on each of these aspects that we're actually going to give you the CNN and the overdrive verdict. Okay, let's start you off though with what we promised earlier, an aromatic topic that we've got brewing for you. This is the story of filter coffee, and we're just going to tell you before we start that the popular food guide Taste Atlas recently called this kind of coffee, filter coffee, the second tastiest type of coffee in the world. Now, obviously, if you're sitting down with us right now, you've probably had your coffee or tea already, but let's just tell you a little bit more about this special kind of coffee. There was a time when Kapoor, as it's called, was synonymous just with households in South India. They closely guarded the secret of their perfect blend. Now, today it's possible to get a tumbler in Delhi, you can get it in Mumbai, you can get it in Kolkata. Coffee chains around the country are actually producing their own mixes of the drink, and we'll tell you all about its evolution. So the story of coffee in India, how this particular drink evolved, what's the story behind it. But before we do any of that, first we need to take you down south to the streets of Bangalore, because here in Delhi we can talk about it, but we need to hear from those who are drinking it as we speak. Let's take a look.
India may be famous for chai, but in Bengaluru and across South India, there's never a great morning without a cup of good filter coffee. In fact, we are right now in Bengaluru's MTR, a very popular outlet, and here you can see a lot of people are here to enjoy that cup of filter coffee. They're all with their friends, family members as well. They have their different talks since it's a weekend as well for them. So all that, they share a different emotion when we talk about the filter coffee. In fact, in Karnataka, it is also called as filter coffee. We'll try and talk to them what really it means to them, a cup of filter coffee, what kind of an emotion that they really share with this. So what filter coffee means to you?
It is a very good filter coffee, especially in the Bangalore. We come to the Lal Bagh for the walking every day. Here in MTR coffee, this is filter coffee. I think it is a crush of the filter coffee from Chikmagaluru. It is a pure crush coffee. You believe me or not, from 10 years, every day, Mr. B. Kenchappagoda is giving coffee for me. 360 days, 365 days, every day morning. More than 50 to 100 people, he is getting coffee.
Means to me, it refreshes me, energizes me, and the main, it can de-stress me also. Morning starts with energy, high energy, and in the evening session, what I am going to tell you is, after all day full stress, once I have a coffee, it will be something relax.
Every day we just come out here in the morning session. The day starts with this coffee itself, and we meet the friends also here. Like, filter coffee is the best coffee, I think so.
Whenever I visit Bangalore, it's an attendance. I have to come to MTR. I can't go back to Chennai without coming to MTR.
Coffee it is like the outmost thing that you have to have a coffee throughout the day. And MTR's coffee, it's not very sweet, it's not very strong as well. It's just, it hits you at the right spot. So coffee is love.
But coffee kaise aaya India mein? What's the story there? Let's bring you a little bit of history. Popular belief says that it was all the way back in the 16th century that the beans were first brought to India by a Sufi saint, Baba Budan. And this is a story that's very interesting because the fable goes that he was on his way back from a pilgrimage from Mecca and he actually sneaked precisely 7 beans of coffee into India because you weren't allowed to carry out a particular kind of bean from that region. So there are 2 versions. One says that he carried the beans in his beard. One says that he carried them strapped to his stomach. But either way, he clearly successfully sneaked them out and he planted them on the seeds. Again, this is the legend goes. He planted them along the lush hills of Chikmagalur, which you may have already heard of. It's a region in Karnataka. Still, it was not until the turn of the 20th century. So we're talking about accounts that stretch all the way from the 1900s. You even have 1800s, late 1800s, some accounts that say, according to most historians, that that's really when coffee drinking became a household phenomenon that you were seeing in different classes in different parts of India. Different accounts you have of the early 1900s too, where women were taking up coffee drinking. Many historians were talking about the goods, the bads of it. It was becoming a debate. And let's just talk a little bit about the preparation of filter coffee in particular, because it's important to tell you here that every family closely guards its blend. So the proportion of chicory, for example, that they're going to be putting in, each of those things is very, very closely guarded, and it's something that families almost look at as secrets, especially when you talk to people from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu. But broadly, what are the broad ingredients? You have blended dark roasted coffee. It's ground together with what we told you earlier, chicory, and then you brew the entire mix in a metal filter and you create a very strong decoction. Now, the mixture is then combined with frothy boiled milk, cow's milk if you're being particular, and you serve it in a tumbler and a dabra. Now, today, India is seeing a new wave of homegrown coffee roasters. You have brands like Blue Tokai, Third Wave, and they're all looking to incorporate this traditional coffee into their lineup. They are doing it in different ways. Remember the iconic tumbler, that dabra, you've seen it, the look of it, that little copper vessel. All of that is being experimented with now. One such company is Humble Bean Coffee. It's in Bengaluru. We have the co-founder with us this morning on the show today with us. So Mana MM is joining us early in the morning. He's an early riser. Let's just go to him to ask him a little bit more about how Humble Bean went about all of this. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us here on TVC. Sir, can we just ask you, can we start off by asking you, why did Humble Bean decide to develop a filter coffee? You're located in Bangalore, and it's pretty gutsy to say we're gonna go out and create our version of a drink that every person is already drinking. They already have their favorite recipe of it. So what made you decide, okay, this is something we want to do?
Good morning, Toya. Thanks for having me on air. First of all, the reason behind Humble Bean in wanting to incorporate the filter coffee blend actually originated from our thought experiment that we were doing. So we belong more towards the 4th wave of coffee, where experimentation is what we do at the back end. We understand how small and medium farmers' coffees come into the mainstay. So out of many of these experiments that we did, one of them led to us incorporating one of our cafes in a shop-in-shop kind of a model. And that's when we realized that as a shop-in-shop, there was a lot of offerings of South Indian food that was offered there. So that's when we realized as a muscle memory, people usually after a South Indian breakfast tend to have a South Indian filter coffee. So it's very synonymous. So it's more of a religion, right? So and that's when we got on to understanding, since we do all the coffees best had as black, and then we propagate a lot of black coffees in the 3rd wave and the 4th wave kind of coffee setup. So how do we incorporate this? So Humble Bean got more deep into understanding what forms the best of the filter coffee, and that's through our experiments we've understood that freshly brewed, from a mocha pot, because everything boils down to the viscosity of the beverage, and that's why the advent of chicory came into the being, is because the chicory adds a lot of body into the coffee, which actually cuts through the milk. And through our social experiments, we wanted to be as inclusive as possible, and you cannot get away with the fact not having a filter coffee. And that's when Humble Bean incorporated the filter coffee blend. to one of its many offerings that we have.
So I want to ask you, you're talking a little bit about the flavor components that go into making almost the perfect sip of filter coffee. And I just want to ask you, because every person has their own preference, so of how sweet they want to make it, of how heavy in the coffee flavor, how intense they want to make it. For getting the perfect filter coffee, do you then end up conducting taste tests? What does that look like?
So we are very focused on the flavor science of coffee as to, for example, most of new age coffee companies are actually also talking about 100% Arabica. So it eliminates the very aspect of losing out something which is very palatable, like for example the Indian Robusta. So from times immemorial, if you specifically look at Tamil Nadu as a region, people are very, they're hardcore fanatics about South Indian filter coffee. They abstain from using chicory, right? So that's when we realize the aspect of good palatable Robustas adds an amazing body into the already a good filter coffee. So through our thought experiments, through our flavor science and then all of that, we realized that we can also not have chicory and bring the best of the South Indian filter coffee. And further experiments led us to come out with a solution that the mocha pot extraction, if regulated well, could actually bring out the best of the nuances of the filter coffee. So yeah, so we tend to abstain from the chicory variant of the filter coffee.
So you're using some terms that are a little technical, and I'll even get you to explain, for example, what each of the waves mean, what they stand for, because you were earlier saying third wave. Right now we were talking a little bit about the body of a coffee. So we'll go into that in a second. But I just want to ask you before we do that, we had the chance to speak before we had this interview, and one of the things you told me was that while you love filter coffee and you have a soft spot for it, you think it should be looked at as a comfort food. Can you elaborate, especially for those of us who are having it every single morning?
It is very synonymous with the South Indian breakfast. For example, the gaining popularity of the dosa brands and the idli coffee, so the idli and many other aspects of the South Indian filter coffee, it is very, very satisfying actually to end it with a filter coffee. So it's come through traditions that after a nice breakfast, South Indian breakfast, it ends with an amazing cup of coffee. So it's very, very comforting. So that's how traditionally it has evolved. So if you're comparing the coffee and food pairing aspect of it, it is you cannot get away with not having a filter coffee after a South Indian breakfast. So that's how I would like to put it.
But would you have it yourself every day, if I may ask?
In spite of me being a hardcore black coffee drinker where I enjoy my coffee, best had as black or whatever, but one thing that you cannot take from me is, whenever there is a nice breakfast that's offered at home, we always land up brewing it on a mocha pot and having an amazing South Indian filter coffee. So a South Indian filter coffee can never be eliminated from a South Indian household. So it's very much like a religion.
Can I ask you?
So I love my filter coffee after breakfast, yeah.
That's great. So let me just ask you then, you are someone who, and your entire organization works very closely with coffee farmers. So I just want to ask you, tell us a little bit about the changing ecosystem that we've seen. Decades ago, filter coffee was one of the biggest products. Now, you have a bunch of premium coffee brands that have entered into the sector over the last few years. What has that meant for coffee farmers? How do we need to better protect them? Just give us an overview there.
So what has happened with the South Indian filter coffee is, let me take the inference of a South Indian filter coffee. For example, it was randomized, it was a hit and a miss. But with the advent of new age coffee companies coming in place, the refinement of the beverage has gone to the next level. So even for South Indian filter coffee, if you want the best of the South Indian filter coffee, it has to come from the best of the beans, and it is in the art of blending. So what has that led to is that the requirement of a good South Indian filter coffee means a lot of good beans, which means that you have to go backwards and then bring in the quality orientation amongst the farming community, right? So in that sense, it's added a huge amount of value where farmers are now abreast with some of the better practices which can actually enhance the bean, therefore resulting in a damn good cup of filter coffee. So it is very much becoming an inclusive part of farm orientation and then what we can do with the farming community.
Sir, thank you so much for giving us the lowdown. We hope after this interview you'll take out a little time, you'll enjoy your own cup of filter coffee. But thank you for joining us this morning and giving us the basics on this. Okay, let's talk a little bit. You know that on TBC, when we discuss a topic, we have to give you all the sides of the story. So many of you, our audiences, are joining us this morning and you've already had your coffee or your tea as you've come to sit by us. So we thought one of the things we have to do is sit down with a doctor and also understand how should you be having your coffee. Let's go over to Dr. Prakhar Garg. He's actually with us from the Yatharth General Hospital. He's with us this morning on the show. Sir, thank you so much for joining us here on CNN News 18 on TBC. Let's just ask you first. We'll keep our focus on filter coffee for the first question. What is the effect that having a filter coffee, often the serving is quite small. So what's the effect having a filter coffee has on our body? And I want to ask you this, doctor, keeping in mind that most often you're having it after you've had either a dosa, idli, some kind of breakfast. So it's not that your stomach is unlined entirely. What's the effect that your coffee is having?
Talking about the coffee, the filter coffee. So that is one drink which most of us are having after breakfast, or it is the kickstart for the day. So regarding the coffee, there are both pros and cons for that. So one thing important is that definitely having the coffee after a meal is something which will provide the gastric troubles. So taking a coffee empty stomach in the morning can lead to severe gastric issues, especially the people who are taking on the daily basis. Second thing is that if we talk about that whenever a cup of coffee, it depends upon the quantity of the coffee which you are having.
Right.
Suppose it's just about 1 cup of coffee in a day, then it is a different thing. If you are tend to have a coffee like 4 to 5 cups or 8 times, multiple times, then definitely it is something which can have some side effects also. So talking about the amount of coffee, usually it is usually as per the World Health Organization, the recommended caffeine intake per day is around 400 milligram, which should be taken, and around a cup of coffee usually has 80 to 100. So along with that, nowadays the lifestyle is such that in the hectic lifestyle, students who are studying late nights and all, so they tend to have more of caffeine intake, not only in the form of caffeine but also energy drinks, soft drinks and all, which all contain some amount of caffeine. So that needs to be taken into consideration, that whenever any kind of caffeine drink is to be taken, then the amount has to be well identified before, so as to avoid the complications created by them.
So, doctor, can I ask you, I know so many people who will have coffee, and by that I don't just mean filter coffee, I mean any kind of coffee. They'll have it as something that almost aids them to go to the washroom. So early in the morning, when you need to go to the washroom, when that's something you just need to check off, I know people who drink a coffee for that purpose. Long term, can that be harmful, or is it good to set a kind of cue for your body?
Actually, thing is that caffeine has some diuretic property, diuresis, which because of which it leads to the person tends to go to washroom for peeing repeated times. So the who are the elderly population who are suffering from prostate issue, benign prostate hyperplasia, and on the elderly age, they are specially restricted by the doctors not to take any tea, coffee during the night hours or after the dinner, because already we are giving them medicines so as to prevent repeated going to washroom at night, because ultimately it can also lead to some falls and all. So if the caffeine intake is there, then the diuresis increases. And same is the issue with the people who are suffering from diabetes. So if the sugar diabetes is not controlled, then the symptoms are excessive urination, excessive thirst, and the water intake. And that too, if the caffeine intake is more, then also these property increases. And at times the patients become confused that whether this is happening because of the uncontrolled sugar level, or it is the diuretic property of the caffeine which is resulting into this.
So let me just tell our audiences then, you're saying older audiences and anyone with diabetes, they have to be more careful about their caffeine consumption. Let me just give our audiences one more takeaway here then, doctor. If you had to tell us, okay, beyond this time, don't have coffee if you don't want to harm your nighttime sleep cycle. Around what time would that be? Would it be a 4 p.m. or are we looking at as early as 1 p.m. in the afternoon, don't have another coffee after?
Coffee or the caffeine, if we talk about, then it causes insomnia. Insomnia means the decreased sleep. But the effect is like if a coffee is taken, suppose 8 a.m. in the morning, the effects last for on an average 6 hours. So it is thing that if you are going to bed early, like around 9 p.m. or so, then your last cup of coffee should be around 2 p.m., 3 p.m., not before, not after that. And in case if you are going to bed, you have tendency of sleeping late at 11 and 12, then you can have an evening also. But on the other part, it has to also be taken into consideration that people with hypertension, the high blood pressure or the high heart rate, people, they have also to be very much vigilant about taking these drinks, because it causes high blood pressure and the heart rate, which causes palpitations. So at times people who are suffering from thyroid, hypothyroidism and all, they usually have some palpitation issue, or suffering from any anxiety disorders, they have palpitation issue, and these excess of these drinks can also increase these symptoms. So on the other part, if we talk about regarding the caffeine, if it is a neuroprotective also, but on the other side, you need to see your cardiovascular system also.
Okay, one last question I want to ask you here. Any students or people who have to pull late nights, between coffee, Diet Coke, energy drinks, if you had to give a recommendation, because they're all unhealthy and healthy in their own ways, they have different advantages, how would you suggest we should go about deciding which to go for?
See, coffee is something which can be prepared as per your choice, the milk, the sugar, so it can be decided. The energy drink, the cola which are coming, they are already prepared. So they are pre-prepared. You have no choice except to drink them, whatever amount of sugar they have. So the students who are studying at night, if the carbs intake, fat intake and the sugar intake is more, then also it causes some kind of disturbance in your sleep also, and in your normal mental status also. So at that time when you have to study, it is better that you take coffee with no sugar or a very less sugar, so that it can be prepared as per your wish. But the other drinks have high sugar content, which ultimately affects your other body organs also.
Okay, doctor, thank you so much for giving that 360 degrees. We wanted to tell our audiences this because we're all big fans, especially of filter coffee, the caramelly flavor that it does have. But we wanted our audiences to know that when it comes to caffeine, it's delicious. It's a habit that I have, that you have probably. There are some things you need to be careful of as you engage with it. Okay, we're going to go into a quick break. Coming up after the break, we're shifting tracks entirely into something very different. We're going to be speaking to GJ Sherpa, who has, as of just a few days ago, conquered Cho Oyu. What is Cho Oyu? It's the 6th highest peak in the world, and he's conquered it from the unforgiving Nepal side. So he's opened up a new route entirely. We'll speak to him in just a few minutes.
Nervousness among young people can all be traced back to the disastrous Brexit vote in 2016, which was championed by the likes of Nigel Farage. After 8 years of post-Brexit uncertainty, Britons want their next government to address their massive economic woes. In the 2019 election, the Conservative Party's then leader Boris Johnson won with a huge margin of over 350 seats. His promise was to finish the unfinished agenda from Britain's exit from the European Union. That unfinished business over the last 5 years has meandered from one crisis to another. The Conservative Party has governed the UK since 2010. They've had as many as 5 different prime ministers in that time. The Conservatives, the Tories, have dominated UK politics for the last decade and a half. It started with David Cameron and ended with Rishi Sunak. In between, there was Theresa May, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. After Boris Johnson quit office following the infamous Partygate scandal, where his ministers and his staff threw secret parties in government offices and residences while the rest of the country was locked in during the COVID-19 lockdown. Starmer, who led the Labour Party's campaign, has hailed this verdict as a new age of hope and opportunity for Britain. He has fashioned his politics much like Tony Blair and New Labour, moving the traditionally left union-backed politics of the Labour Party, moving it into a much more centrist space in a bid to try and attract independent voters. So Starmer has promised not to tax the working classes. He has said he will keep the corporate tax at 25% and not increase net migration into the UK. The 61-year-old Starmer is a human rights lawyer, he's a knight, and he has served as a legal advisor to the police in Northern Ireland. He later became England's top prosecutor. The passing of a controversial Rwanda deportation scheme into a law by the previous Sunak government, that seemed to have been the final straw in the Conservative coffin. The immigration policy that was proposed in 2022 by the British government identifies asylum seekers or illegal immigrants and then relocates them to Rwanda for further asylum and resettlement. The policy has been criticized roundly as inhumane by both Labour as well.
Okay, let's take you now to stories that are taking place across the country and the world with our news wraps. First, right here in India. Our first story on 4th July. This year itself, the humanitarian and philanthropist Mohan Ji was awarded the Vivekananda International Relations Peace Award. This is at the as a global humanitarian. It was a glittering function that went down at the Taj Mahal Palace in Mumbai, and the Peace Awards were presented to outstanding Indian achievers who've contributed substantially to the cause of peace, welfare, harmony, sustainability, all at a global level. The FSSAI, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, has mandated more prominent and clearer labeling of sugar, salt, fat content on packaged foods. The proposal will enable people to make healthier choices. It will also hopefully contribute towards efforts to combat non-communicable diseases and promote public health and well-being. Google has reached a major milestone. It solidified its status as a $2 trillion company amidst transformative changes, strategic refocusing efforts. The tech giant's latest financial triumph follows significant advancements in AI and strategic market moves. Now we take you to news of, as we bring you, Google has reported a significant rise of 48% in its greenhouse gas emissions. This surge is attributed to the growing computational power that's required by AI technologies, which now underpin many of Google's services. As Google aims for net zero emissions by 2030, this is one of its most formidable challenges, balancing AI advancement with its previously made environment commitments. And a promising new study is making revelations around a popular weight loss and diabetics medication set. So these are medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. These are all different medications that may significantly reduce the risk of certain cancers in people also, we're finding. So this is people with type 2 diabetes, for example. Essentially what's happening is that these medications interact with systems that are related to insulin production. Now this has offered new hope in the fight against obesity-related cancers in specific. And humans, very interestingly, are not the only ones who are capable of performing amputations. Scientists have observed carpenter ants actually performing life-saving different kinds of amputations on their populations. This is on nest mates. to prevent fatal infections. 90 to 95% of ants that receive this amputation actually make it through the process and they continue with their duties. This is showcasing a very, very fascinating parallel between the way humans are and insects are when it comes to medical practices. And we're taking you to our next story. NASA is marking a significant milestone today as the first volunteer crew who spent over a year living inside a simulated Mars habitat is preparing to emerge. The 4-member crew who've been conducting critical experiments and Mars walk simulations, they'll all be exiting this 1,700 square foot 3D printed habitat. We're showing you those visuals on your screens right now. All of this will happen on July 6th. So as of a few hours ago, their year-long stay has provided invaluable data that will help shape future manned missions to Mars. And lastly, zoos across Europe are undertaking an extraordinary mission involving cutting-edge fertility technology. They're collecting eggs from the majestic 2-ton rhino. It's no easy task, but the goal is to help the wild rhino population, which, remember, has rebounded from the brink of extinction. Now, with the aid of IVF techniques and contributions from genetically diverse zoo populations, scientists are actually hoping to secure a brighter future for these magnificent animals. So, using cutting-edge technology to reverse extinction trends. We're taking you now to something very, very special. We're excited to have with us this morning on the Breakfast Club one of the world's most well-known climbers. This is GJ Sherpa. He's joining us on the show this morning. He's, as we said already, a renowned climber. He's also an expert high-altitude rescuer who, with his team of 7, just very successfully summited Cho Oyu from the very difficult south side. We're going to tell you all about him. We just showed you him for a second. Last year, his fame actually reached a new level of virality when he rescued a climber from a particularly dangerous part of Mount Everest. That dangerous part is actually called the death zone, and we'll ask him more about that on the show today. But first, we'll tell you a little bit about his most recent achievement. Cho Oyu is the world's 6th highest mountain, and it straddles a border, and usually when you climb it with groups, you climb it from the Tibet side. Now, GJ has made history by summiting from the Nepal side. After 3 previous attempts, he's tried, he's had to turn back for different reasons in the past. We just wanted to ask him what went into this, why this is such a big deal, and what this is going to mean for all of Nepal, because it's really, really huge. So let's go over to him to ask him more about this. GJ, thank you for joining us this morning. Good morning. It's so lovely to see you this bright and early. You've opened up a new world of opportunities. I think it's fair to say that for mountaineers from the Nepalese side. But for our audiences who might be tuning in, our TBC family, who may not be so familiar with the ecosystem around mountain climbing, in Nepal in particular, just break down for us. Why is it such a big achievement?
Cho is like from Nepal side mountains, so like we need to climb from the China side, so we need to make visa process, and then we need to like pay for the permit for the China, right? And it's our mountains, just like we need to climb from the Nepal side. It's my dream to, I make like dream from like 4 years ago to like open from Nepal side, but from Nepal side is like very hard because of the weather and because of the how to say, like because of the teamwork, also very hard to find the team and very hard to find the sponsorship, and our government also like they not help us to like make that project. So government didn't not care about that one, because that's why just in my mind I want to make from Nepal side route. So that's why just I opened from Nepal side. This time just like finally we just made it. And from China side is like very easy to climb, because Nepal side is like fully technical, like more than like some point like we need to climb like more than 90 degrees.
Okay, so you've explained to us what was happening before this from the China side and now what you've essentially done. But can you just tell us, because it's so nice to have you early in the morning and to give everyone watching this that inspiring start. You've tried to do this 3 previous times and you haven't been able to. So each of those times, what did the difficulties look like? And if we had to ask you what you think you did differently, what would you say?
First thing is that we try in winter. That was in winter is like no possible, and mostly like technical part and like more like avalanche risks, that part. And this time we find like new routes, like another route also, because last few years ago I tried like different route. That route was like quite risky, like about like avalanche risks, like because of weather also. That's like quite tough. And one thing's like very hard to make like teamwork and very hard to find the like finance, right? So that's why also like quite hard for us. And then we have a like in Nepali also like we have a, like 2 teams, like a competition team. Like we're not like we're not doing how to say like we are not like as a team. Like we have a different room like team, and we are like also like doing competitions. Like they are like from called like Thame side, but same mountain but like different route, and we are like trying to from Gokyo side. But that time we didn't like conquer that time because like we are failed that expeditions. So if we like unite, like we can conquer. If we like divide, we fall. That time, this time is why we like did summit, because we have a like good team, and then second thing is we have a like good support also. All the team also like motivate each other. That's why also like I get like more confident for the, like opening it from that side.
I love what you said. If we unite, we conquer. If we divide, we fall. Can we just ask you, GJ, you're standing in the cold, you know, on top of one of these peaks, anytime you're climbing, and there's wind coming at your face, there are pieces of snow coming at your face. What are you telling yourself in your own head? What do you turn around your team? This time you climbed with a team, 7 people in total. What are you telling each other to stay inspired in those kind of tough situations?
Depending on the conditions, they're like I have a like more experience than other people. Like they are mostly people are new, because I said like if we make like route this route, we can get like good achievement also for us. This is like from long time no one climb. If we make like route from Nepal side, for everyone like very like good like benefit also, and good for them like for them your profile also. So good for like my health also. So if you try even like bad weather, like what is the we call like bad weather, like bad weather is like sometime like snowing and windy, like that kind of weather, like more than like 70 to 80 kilo per hour winds. That time I can make force for them. I need to like I'm the leader, I need to like take care for them also. You need to do this, you need to do this. So I'm like divide the work. Like doing the work, like sometimes whether it even like if weather is bad, you guys need to like think about it. And you can't say like, oh, I want to go back, because at least they need to ask what's the condition now. If like this condition, what do we need to do? If like sometime like with strong winds, like so much risky for the life, I'm never forced for them. So, but if like sometimes like 1 hour, 2 hours, like quite risky, and we say like keep continue, or like we stop like for a few minutes after like 1 hour, like half an hour, we have a like weather focus like getting better.
Okay, so you keep stopping to stay motivated. Can we ask you, you went viral last year, I think it's fair to say that, because you did something particularly incredible. So while you were climbing Mount Everest and you were in a particular part of Mount Everest that's known as the death zone, you conducted this particular rescue. Let me just tell our family, our TBC family, so the death zone is called the death zone because it's more cold than other parts. There's oxygen scarcity. And amid all of that, you actually conducted a rescue. There was a video of it. Can you just tell us a little bit about that whole experience?
That moment is like, has to become from the heart, one thing, right? That moment I was like guiding for like someone, like one Chinese client. I need to like make it happen. He summit plan also. One like summit also, summit only not a big things. And then if I go summit, I get like more than like $20,000 for if I summit with that clients. in my mind, just like I'm the Buddhist, so that's where in my mind came if I help someone, that's the like huge things for me and for my religion also. And one thing's like came from my heart, like I need to like save this guy. And if I save this guy, this is like good for my like how to say like life also in like our religion, right?
Right.
So that's where like came from my religion also. So that's where I decided to like rescue for this guy in above like 8,500 meter like called dead zone, right? That point is like we had to do the rescue. One thing. That's like even you are like we are brother like two brother with each other, like together, we can like help each other. And in the mountain has to be like climber to climber also has to be like as a brother, right? But that kind of relation we need to make that kind of relation in the mountain. But that altitude, like when I do the rescue for him, he's like almost like unconscious. He's like shaking the hands,
Right.
and in my mind came, oh, someone left me here like during the climbing, and never say like what's going on tomorrow, right? And this in my thing, I said like, oh, if I'm here, like someone not doing rescue, it's like very bad things for me. Also, I'm gonna die here.
That's beautiful. I love the spiritual part of your answer right now. Can we ask you, Mount Everest today, it's almost part of everyone's bucket list. You'll hear people say that it's the thing they want to do before they die. And you'll actually hear, you know, I almost feel like in every 100 people, one person's dream at least is to climb. And I just want to ask you, when you hear people say that, especially now with almost how common it's become, what's your advice? What's the one thing you say everyone needs to listen to before they even start considering such dreams?
If they have a dream, if they want to do like climb like Everest, they have to do like training something like
Okay.
at least like basic training. Even if they do like advanced training, that's the huge thing for him and for everyone. And one thing, if they don't have training, sometimes like get like people say like traffic jam, like they say in mountains. It's not like no possible to make like two-way in mountains. So that's where like traffic jam also like because of the like no training. They don't know like how to change the safety, and Sherpa has to change for the safety for them. That's time also take long time. That's why also get like traffic jam, right? So that's where if they have a training, like easy to do like safety changing, everything, look after themselves. In my advice is do like some at least like a basic training for them, even like what kind of Sherpa they have, like how much experience Sherpa doesn't matter. But if you have on safety things, he knows about what is the safety, and that's the big things for them. I'm doing advice for them.
Wow, I did not realize that there are people who attempt to climb Mount Everest without getting their basic training. That is something. Before we let you go, could we ask you, lastly, the achievement that we started the show by, this interview by discussing, Cho OU, it's essentially opened up a ton of economic opportunities, a ton of tourism opportunities for those who are able to climb that kind of difficulty. But in Mount Choyu, so for the Nepalese side, you're a big champion for the people of Nepal, for the Sherpa community. And now that you've done this you've said was a dream for many years. But what's next now on your dream list?
Next team like always surprise, but I want to make like make a dreams. I have a dream, but I want to do like some 14 peaks also. I know like 14 peaks in double, because no one like did like double in youngest. I wanted to, because in my dream was before, one dream was I was planning to like climb 14 peaks in youngest. Actually, because China, he didn't get the visa, they didn't get the visa. That's why I stopped. So that's why I didn't make my dream. So my dream is now making 14 peak in double time. And then I have one plan for doing 7 summit. It's like world highest mountain. I want to climb like all Asia mountains. So if I make like some project, like mostly like I'm planning to like make surprise, like because if I like say someone and they can like copy things, and that's why like better to be like surprise things next stream.
So no plan of resting anytime soon. GJ, thank you so much for taking out time, joining us this morning right here on the show. Have a lovely, lovely morning. Let's move on from this now to something very, very different, a different turn altogether. Over the last few years, you've probably heard of the word Ozempic. And it's become a hit. You've probably heard of it in the context of weight loss. It's become a huge hit among celebrities from Hollywood, from those who want to look a certain weight. And as we speak, a lot of research on its usage is still being done. Now, the drug is actually something that you'll hear is prescribed for adults who have a certain kind of diabetes, type 2. And the issue is that ever since Ozempic became something that was of common parlance that people were talking about, there was actually a shortage for those who have diabetes and actually need it. They were not able to get this drug that they needed. But what happens when you use Ozempic? How dangerous is it? And what do doctors actually say when it's used this way, which is for weight loss, not just in the context of diabetes? Keep watching and understand all of the risks that are associated with it. We spoke to doctors. We wanted to get you this basic information, this reminder. Take a look.
How to lose weight fast is a question that always manages to make it to the top 10 most asked questions list on Google every year. Losing weight is indeed a lengthy process and requires a lot of hard work and diet checks. But over the last couple of years, fitness enthusiasts have found a medicine that does it easily for them. Yes, we are talking about the controversial Ozempic. Known generically as semaglutide, it's a medicine approved in 2017 by the US Food and Drug Administration to treat type 2 diabetes. According to a UC Davis health study, weight loss is a common side effect when using Ozempic to treat diabetes. Now this is the part where we talk about how Ozempic ended up becoming a popular weight loss drug, and we have to thank the Hollywood celebrities for that. Actually, nowadays, whenever a celebrity suddenly appears slimmer, the Ozempic accusations always follow, and the Kardashians are the usual suspects. In fact, celebs like Oprah Winfrey, Kelly Clarkson, Whoopi Goldberg and others have spoken openly about taking weight loss medications. Now let's get to know the drug in detail. Ozempic is a once-weekly injectable medication formulated to help adults with type 2 diabetes manage their blood sugar. How does it work? Let's hear it from an expert.
Ozempic, how it works is that it acts on the pancreas to secrete insulin in a way when the body requires it, and also it reduces the glucose output from the liver. So the fluctuations in the sugars don't happen much, and other than that, it delays the stomach emptying or the gastric emptying we call. So what happens is that it causes satiety, fullness in the stomach, and other than that, this molecule, it also acts on the brain, telling the brain that now you're full. You don't need to take it anymore, the food anymore. So because of these two actions of gastric emptying and the brain telling that your stomach is full, it also aids in the weight loss other than the glucose control.
Ozempic has been called a game changer for people living with obesity, but it also has certain side effects. And you know the bigger problem here is the increase in demand. A BBC report from last November suggested that Ozempic has been sold to people trying to lose weight, leaving people with type 2 diabetes without medication. But is this even fair for those who are suffering from type 2 diabetes? Should people looking to lose weight be allowed to buy and use this drug when there are millions who need it so much more? What do you think? Share your views in the comments and do subscribe to Shosha for more on the latest trends.
Okay, let's take you that now to the world of cars. Living life in the fast lane has never tasted so good. With our auto segment, we're going to be showing you the new Maserati. Maserati's new Grand Tourer range takes the luxury experience to an altogether new, electrifying height. But you don't lose any of the iconic charm that you typically associate with this brand. Power, acceleration, dimensions, ride quality. This is the final verdict with overdrive. Take a look.
Stresa, nestled on the shores of the Grand Lake Maggiore, we've come to this beautiful, picturesque location to drive Maserati's latest offering, the Grand Cabrio. with those Alps casting that majestic shadow, that beautiful silhouette, the lake adding to the drama, reflecting the sky like a bright mirror. It's hard not to feel the romanticism of Italy in every nook and corner of this car, every curve, every line, from the head to the toe, everything inside the cabin. It's like a grand tour of Italian flair. After all, it is a cabriolet based on one of the best grand tourers that you can buy from Italy. There is, however, one small problem. You see, this is like a finely brewed Italian coffee, rich, robust, ready to invigorate your senses. But the Italians, they take their coffee very seriously. They love the espresso. Whereas this car, should you go grand touring with it, expects the Italians to have Americanos on the way. And that can attract a lot of ire. Because you see, it has the badge Folgore right on the Maserati grills. What Folgore means in Italian is lightning. And that refers to an electric powertrain. Yes, it's an electric. So if you were to do the quintessential grand touring, go from Italy to France, you can't have that one fuel stop strategy where you stop for 10 minutes, refuel, grab an espresso. It's going to take longer. It's going to need an Americano. And what's going to infuriate the Italians further is that there are no tailpipes. A Maserati Grand Tourer without exhaust pipes. Now that's a problem, isn't it? Which is why Maserati is offering both kinds of variants on the new Grand Cabrio. You can choose a petrol engine with the Modena or the Trofeo, or if you want to go green, you can get the electric. So the way I look at it, this is not for Italy. This is probably for the rest of the world.
It is also for those who want the beautiful form of a Maserati but want to make a green statement. Being a petrol head, I had a go at the V6 powered Trofeo before driving the Folgore. And it's every bit a Maserati as you would expect, and then some. It's quite techy with its pre-combustion and cylinder deactivation functions. It has over 500 horsepower, hitting the ton before you can finish breathing, and adding plenty of oral drama to let the whole neighborhood know that you are in the vicinity. But the Trofeo's performance is not in the same vicinity as the Folgore's. And that advantage, or the sad truth depending on which side of the fence you are on, is what an EV sports car brings to the table. The Folgore delivers 750 PS, accelerating from 0 to 100 in under 3 seconds. It emits faint motor noises, but its classic Maserati design grabs attention. Except for the missing tailpipes, it mirrors the petrol counterpart with a functional grille, the 3D Maserati logo, front air intakes, rear diffusers, and similar ride height and ground clearance.
Like the Gran Turismo, even the Grand Cabrio doesn't let go of that Italian charm. From head to toe, it looks every bit Italian. They have managed to maintain the proportions, including the height of the car, absolutely perfect. So even though there are batteries in this car, it's not high riding. Of course, when you talk about the aerodynamics, the slippery nature of cars like these, 0.26, that coefficient of drag, you may argue that there are electric SUVs that manage better, which are high riding and all of that. So how can a sports car like this do just 0.26? Well, it's the proportions. Going any lower or trying to make the front end overly sharp, that probably wouldn't work to the effect of making the car look the way it does right now. So what they've done is given us the classic silhouette that we love with a Maserati, and at the same time managed to give it the aerodynamic efficiency that is required for an electric powertrain. The cabin is like Da Vinci meets Silicon Valley. So you still get that Italian flair even in the cabin. All the materials, absolutely top-notch. And the way everything is laid out, it has simplicity and yet a lot of luxury to it. And then you have the mix of all the digital aids, the digital stuff, the gadgetry, all of that. So you get a big digital instrumentation, you get a proportionately sized infotainment as well. You also get a touchscreen for your HVAC controls. What I do not like, however, is switches for the drive selection, and the classic Maserati clock is now replaced with a digital display, which in this case also tells you the state of charge for the batteries. But overall, it still feels every bit Maserati, including the materials. They are doing some new materials in here, but none of it feels like a compromise. Everything feels absolutely luxurious.
Speaking of the materials, the cabin is upholstered from nylon, recycled from fishing nets, and while it does not feel the same as leather, it has a unique, soft touch to it that does feel expensive. But apart from feeling rich, Maseratis need to be fast, and boy, does this go! Folgore rockets off the line like a scalded cat, bringing a grin rivaled only by an Italian chef's satisfaction after making the perfect tiramisu. All the Folgore models feature electric all-wheel drive, ensuring that every horse is used effectively.
Next, we bring you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's take a look. First, we bring you the lowdown on markets. GIFT Nifty movement indicates Indian markets may open marginally lower. IT stocks are going to be the focus as curtains rise on the June quarter earnings season this week. Strong closing of the Nasdaq on Friday is going to support Indian IT stocks. Asian markets opened lower in the early hours. Let's bring you a focus on sectors now. In India, jewellery demand appears to have taken a hit. This is due to a few reasons. Steadily rising gold prices, lower number of wedding days also played its part in recent times. Long-term structural stories, though, around the shift of branded and organized from unorganized in this sector, that very much remains intact. Should investors stick with this theme or not? That remains the big question. You can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about jewelry and other actionable insights. Money Control Pro is the premium destination for all investing views and financial insights that you're ever going to need. It's of course powered and brought to you by Money Control. And with that, we bring this edition of the Breakfast Club to a close. Thank you for staying with us and have a beautiful, beautiful week ahead of you.
As the world warms, nature's sentinels will rise. As a billion hands will dig deep to write a new future for our planet.
Starmer has vowed to scrap the Rwanda law on day one. When Keir Starmer moves into 10 Downing Street, he will inherit a state with public services that have been hobbled by more than a decade of budget cuts and austerity measures. A greater number of British people today live in poverty, according to the United Nations, much more than any other wealthy country on the planet. There are more Britons today on food stamps than before COVID. Real incomes have fallen while the cost of food and housing has skyrocketed. The National Health Services, the NHS, which used to be a thing of pride for most ordinary Britons, today is dealing with a shortage of doctors and healthcare workers. Many of them are frequently either on strike, and a large number of them are simply leaving Britain, going abroad for better pay. Keir Starmer has his work cut out. He will have to hit the ground running.
The Labour Party has won this general election, and I have called Sir Keir Starmer to congratulate him on his victory.
4.5 years of work changing the party. This is what it is for.
Britain's Labour Party won a landslide election victory, the biggest that it has seen in a generation. The landslide was so comprehensive, it swept the Conservative Party out of power after almost a decade and a half. It was an anti-incumbent revolt by ordinary British citizens who were sick and tired of a massive cost of living crisis as the Tories changed 5 prime ministers in 5 years. The Labour win is comparable all the way back to 1997 when Tony Blair led New Labour to a thumping win, ending decades of Conservative rule, first under Margaret Thatcher and later under John Major. Today heralds a new era in British politics. The outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak conceded his party's defeat in the early morning hours. He said, and I quote, "The British people have delivered a sobering verdict tonight." Sunak was speaking to his voters from his constituency in the northern part of the country. He then said he had also called Keir Starmer, who is the leader of the Labour Party and the incoming Prime Minister, to congratulate him. He also apologized.
A very good morning to all our viewers. You're watching the morning news on CNN News 18. I'm Anjali Pandey, here to take you through all the latest news and updates from across the nation and around the world. And our top focus of this hour is on the rainfall, the heavy rainfall that has lashed several parts of Mumbai. Now, there is waterlogging being reported in the low-lying areas of Mumbai. In fact, Harbour Line and Central Line are also affected due to the waterlogging. Meanwhile, the IMD has predicted further heavy downpours in the state during the next 3 to 4 days. And the commute in Mumbai is also disturbed following the waterlogging that has been triggered by the heavy rainfall in the city. And several areas of the city have completely submerged in water after the hefty downpours. Let's listen into some reactions of the residents over there.
अभी बारिश आ रहा है, अभी बारिश तो नेचर है, उसको आना चाहिए। अभी इतना पानी भर जाएगा तो कभी सोचा नहीं था। अभी बारिश के सामने किसकी चलती नहीं है भाई।
बारिश में कभी गड्ढे विड्ढे भी रहते हैं ना, बरोबर वो कभी किधर गड्ढा आदमी गिर गया, किधर बरोबर वो भी नहीं है ना। अभी आदमी कैसे जाएगा बारिश में, ट्रेन बंद, बस बंद, सब बंद।
अंधेरी से आया मैं बस पकड़ने। अभी तो पानी पूरा भरा हुआ है पूरे रास्ते में, चलने के लिए जगह नहीं है, बीच में से चलना पड़ रहा है।
किस तरह का परेशानी हुई और क्या करना चाहिए?
सुविधा होनी चाहिए कुछ अच्छी खासी इसके लिए।
सबसे पहले मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा, बीएमसी का बजट 50,000 करोड़। जी हाँ, बिल्कुल सही सुना मैंने, 50,000 करोड़ का बजट है बीएमसी का, सिर्फ मुंबई शहर का। और इस बीएमसी के बजट का 50,000 करोड़ का नजारा देखिए। ये जो नजारा है वो किसी नदी, नहर, समंदर का बिल्कुल नहीं दिख रहा है, लेकिन वैसा ही दिख रहा है और उससे ज्यादा खतरनाक दिख रहा है। ये नजारा है मुंबई के अंधेरी सबवे का। ये वो सबवे है जो सबर्बन को ईस्ट से वेस्ट जोड़ता है। बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट सबवे है जो ईस्ट से वेस्ट जोड़ता है। लेकिन इस सबवे के देखिए पानी का प्रेशर देखिए, अगर मैं आपको अपने कैमरामैन अर्जुन को बोलूं दिखाएगा, पानी का प्रेशर देखिए कितना तेज है। और इसी प्रेशर के तहत से देखिए वो सबवे जा रहे हैं पानी में, ऊपर लोकल ट्रेन चल रही है। और ये सबवे बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है मुंबई सबर्बन के लिए, क्योंकि ये जो ईस्ट वेस्ट का जो इलाका है वो कनेक्ट करता है। लेकिन भारी बारिश की वजह से पूरा का पूरा सबवे को बंद कर दिया गया है। आसपास के इलाके हैं वो भी पूरे से बंद कर दिए गए हैं। दूसरी तरफ की तस्वीरें दिखाऊंगा, देखिए लोगों को कितनी मुश्किलों का सामना करना पड़ रहा है, क्योंकि ऑफिस का टाइम होते जा रहा है। महिलाएं हो, पुरुष हो, मुंबई में ऐसा होता है कि आप ऑफिस नहीं छोड़ सकते, आपको किसी भी तरीके से जाना पड़ेगा।
And News 18's Preeti Sompura is joining us live from Kalina. Preeti, how is the situation currently over there?